Welcome back to another episode of DEC Does What. This is Sean Mahar, your host, here along with
Erica Ringwald.
And we're excited to be coming out of our little break that we took over the summer. We had some fun summertime activities, and we contemplated a little bit this whole podcast thing, but we did decide to keep it going. It's a fun little project of ours, and we've been getting some really good feedback from listeners, and, well, we decided to keep it going, and now we decided to take it on the road. But so this is our first remote podcast, and today we are up in our Region 5 office, which is in Raybrook, New York, in the Central Adirondack Park. And in this office is our dispatch unit. We have two dispatches in the state, one here in Raybrook and one in Albany. And today we're excited to be joined by two of our communication specialists who are our dispatch operators here. And when we say dispatch, we're talking about all the calls that come in for service for our forest rangers and environmental conservation police officers and spill experts. Anytime there's a phone call, this comes into our central dispatch. And these are the people who take those calls, field them, figure out what's going on, and figure out how best to dispatch our people to respond to that incident. So happy to be joined today by Alicia Bodmer and David McCasland from Region 5 up here. Welcome to the show, you two.
Welcome to Raybrook.
Welcome.
Well, thanks for having us up here, and thanks for agreeing to do this. Why don't we start off, what is your average day in dispatch, and why is dispatch so important for DEC?
Our average day is not typical because the beautiful thing about it is we never know what's going to happen. You know, we might have an hour where nothing rings, nothing happens, and then we might have 5 searches, 2 rescues, and a fire come in the same hour. So that's what makes it so fascinating, because you just really never know how your day is going to go.
So we've got 370 search and rescue operations that our forest rangers conducted in 2023. They responded to 146 wildfires. We had over 100,000 calls come in for our ECOs and spill responders and forest rangers overall. That's a lot of volume of calls. How do you make this all work? And do you ever get overloaded when the calls come in too frequently?
It's certainly possible to get overloaded, and on busy summer weekends, that can happen. You know, the campgrounds are jumping, people are in the high peaks, people are all over the place. We might get, air quality complaints, anything, water quality complaints, burning, and it can come from anywhere. So a typical day really can run a gamut. We might have fires. It can be weather dependent. It could be emergency weather dependent, like you think of Hurricane Irene and Hurricane Sandy and the damage that those storms did across the state. That involved a huge response. It was Irene, right, in Keene Valley. I had a forest ranger call me on the radio, and he said, "I need you to call Albany right now." And I almost fell off my chair. I said, "What's going on?" He said, "There's 5 feet of water on Marcy Field." So you really, you can plan for certain events. The unexpected events, we just have to be ready for.
We worked that hurricane together, Hurricane Irene, and I got here at 3 o'clock, and the phones did not stop ringing. And we were constantly getting resources to the available locations to help people, especially in the Keene area. And all of a sudden, as the night goes on, I happened to look up at the clock, and it was 11:45.
Just like that.
Just like that. And those are some of the type of days you have in there. A Tuesday, for example. Some Tuesdays can be a little slow, but last Tuesday, we had 4 search and rescues in the span of an hour and 10 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
That's a lot. So you're obviously fielding from the public and then also communicating with their crews on the ground. How difficult is that to do?
You really have to learn how to triage the type of calls that you're getting. So, you could have a fawn in the road, a search and rescue, and a fire, and you have to learn the importance of what you're going to do with those. And that's a big part of the job. It's triaging and making sure that you're getting the available resources to the more important things. Yes, a fawn in the road may be important, but it might not be as important as a man having a heart attack on top of Marcy.
Sometimes you guys are talking to people at like the worst possible moment in their lives. How do you sort of stay calm and make sure you're providing them with the information they need?
You have to stay calm because you're their lifeline. And for me, what I do is I think about putting my personal stress into a box, and I wrap it up in a bow and I put it behind me. I know I have to deal with it later, but I can't allow that stress to affect me thinking. I can't allow that to affect my response, because people in the field that are on the radio that I'm dispatching to, they will understand that if I'm sounding stressed on the radio, it's a little more serious, because we make a serious effort to keep it level. And when we're dealing with people, you cannot panic, because they're going to take that from you. If I'm panicking, what's this poor person who's needing help in the field going to do? So I need to make sure that we use a late night FM radio voice. You're trying to make sure that they're staying calm, because that helps them to think. I'm asking them questions. And if they can't think because they're so stressed, they can't do that. So that's really, you have to deal with those stresses later. But you can't think about them in the moment, because you're trying to get resources to them.
How do you decompress then afterward?
Sometimes it's a walk, maybe a workout, a hike the next day. I talk a lot to my better half about things, and, not everything. I don't give her the entire story, but the things that I'm at liberty to talk about, I will. But it's with this job, sometimes you just have to, as a boss of mine growing up once told me, check it at the door and pick it up on the way back out and deal with it then.
And we do have a 4-10-hour day work week here. And that really, really helps with managing stress. People know that they have a set schedule. They know that they have 3 days off. It makes it a lot easier to cope with everything when you're not here.
Mm-hmm.
So this is a 24/7 operation here, right?
In Albany is. Okay. We are working towards that goal. We're actually just doing some hiring right now. So we're in the process of doing that, where we'll be able to cover 24/7 on the weekends. We had gotten away from that a number of years ago when Albany took it over, but we are working our way back to that.
Great.
That is the goal.
So, on that, and that's a great goal to have, and I'm glad you mentioned jobs. So what are the opportunities, and what type of people are you actively recruiting for when it comes to filling these positions?
We are seeking people who are looking for a unique way to serve. It's a very different type of public service that we have, because it's 24/7. It is nights, it is holidays, it is weekends. It can be a lot more difficult to find people, but the people who do it are passionate about it. We were able to, it's a traineeship that we have now. So it's a 2-year traineeship. So if someone has no experience, they can come in if they have that interest. If they've been a volunteer EMT, if they've been a firefighter, that counts towards it. And now veterans can put those years of credit towards that traineeship as well. And we're really proud of that.
So how many people are in dispatch in any one period of time? Like, is it just one person per shift, or do you have multiple people on?
2 to 3. It depends on, there's a changeover between shifts, and we might have 3 people in there at that point. We're trying to make sure we have 2 people on each shift. Some days we may only have 1. It depends on if someone's on leave, anything like that. But we try to have 2 as backup.
Okay. Most memorable call. Dave, you can go first.
I think my most memorable call that I got, my serious one we'll go with, is I received a call about a group of campers that were 52 in size that were on Middle Saranac, and a storm had come through, and they washed their canoes and tipped them. And Kevin Burns, former captain, when he was a Ranger 1, himself and Julie Harjung were able to wrangle all 52 people, get them to shore, bring them down through Middle Saranac to Lower Saranac, and then get them to a hotel where 52 people were saved and brought to a room. And I thought that was the most amazing thing that a Ranger could do. There's so many memorable calls, but that one stands out sometimes. And I thought 52 people and 2 Rangers is pretty incredible.
So, Alicia, what about yours?
Well, there's so many, but I think one that really sticks out is the initial phone call for the 2 kids who were lost in Algonquin in 2016. I took that initial call, and it has always struck me how much a mother or a family member has that gut feeling. Mm-hmm. Because it was winter, it was December, and she said, they haven't called yet. And I said, well, it's not quite dark yet, let's give. Normally we try to give them a little more time, because I get those calls every week, almost every day, where people are saying, hey, they haven't come out yet. It's like, well, there's no cell phone service. There's a lot of reasons. People might just be enjoying the day. But this one just felt different. And she said, I think something's wrong. So I said, well, let me get a hold of a supervisor and we'll go ahead and I'll let them know, but let's give it a few more hours. I called the lieutenant and then I called Ranger Perjaclo, who was on duty. And I said, hey, can you just go to the lodge and see if the vehicle's there? Like now, but while you're on duty. And he got over there and he's like, yeah, the car's there. I was like, okay, yep. So, and then it started and, I think, we were on the phone with those mothers pretty much every hour. And they kept saying, are you okay with this? I'm like, of course I'm okay with this. I might have to put you on hold, but call me if you need me, And then when they actually got that aviation hoist out of there, a few days later when they found them on the side of Algonquin, it was just amazing. We were, hearing the Rangers on the ground saying, they're up, they're in the ship, they're clear. I mean, we were sitting there, it was like the regional director and, we had like 10 people in the dispatch screaming when it happened because we were just so grateful. It had been 3 marathon days.
So for everyone who isn't familiar, way back in 2016, a young couple found themselves lost on Algonquin. This is the Adirondacks' second highest peak. And working around the clock through extreme weather and winter terrain, search crews were successful and rescued the young couple. It truly was a life or death effort anchored by New York State Forest Rangers and the help of state police helicopters.
So that's interesting story one, and I'll always remember that one as well. It was fascinating, great to see the Rangers go. But I think more in these positions, right? You're not just fielding a call and figuring out where to send it. You're also helping people in their time of need. How difficult is that? Do you just sort of adapt to that in the field as you get these calls coming in? Or, how do you work to, get the information you need when you have to console an individual as well?
It's situational. But, we try to develop a rapport. It's like the first thing when people call me and they say, hey, this person might be overdue, I make sure they call me direct. Because a lot of times the 911 centers will put them over. So the first thing you do is make sure that they have the direct number. I give them my name. Like, I'm here all night. You have the right place. We're going to go through and do that. And it's just making sure that they understand that we have the best people in the field out there, and passing that on. And if I wasn't comfortable with sending these folks out for my family, I wouldn't be doing this for them. Trying to make sure that they know that. And I think that really helps because it brings the stress levels down. And when I can call people and say, hey, they found them, there's just nothing like that. And people call me back and they're like, oh, they came back, they're all set, they're done, they made it out, I'm all set. And just to have that, interaction with folks and know that they got something from that phone call, it's a really unique way to serve.
And at the end of the day, when you go home, you feel that you've accomplished something, and that's a great feeling. That you've helped somebody, you've saved somebody's life, you helped rescue them, you've maybe helped get a bear out of their backyard or a deer or some angry woodchuck. But, it's a sense of accomplishment, and that's important for self-worth, in my opinion.
So in addition to fielding calls from the actual, people who are calling because, a loved one is lost or something like that, you're also dealing with the officers. How much of a rapport do you build with them? Like, do you know what makes them tick? Like, and do you know when you're going to call them in the middle of the night and say, hey, you're going to have to go do this and, it's going to be okay. But how does that work interfacing with the officers here?
Well, they're amazing, and I don't know if you should tell them we said that. But, our motto is basically make them look good, get them home safe, and make them look good doing it. And they know that, we're their backup. I can't tell you how many times over the years Rangers have called me at 2:00 in the morning. They're like, I'm so glad you stayed, in Raybrook while I'm on this search. I'm like, I'm in a nice, cozy, warm office in Raybrook. You're climbing Mount Marcy at 2:00 in the morning in February. Yeah. I'm not the one who's sacrificing here. I think it's just knowing that we have each other's backs.
and that's for certain. Retired Ranger Tom Gliddy once told me when he was working that the Rangers are a band of independent contractors. That was his nice way of putting it, basically saying that each one has their own idiosyncrasies of how they do their job and whatnot. But when it comes down to working together, they just mesh, and it's unbelievable.
What would you say is your best advice for outdoor adventurers so they don't wind up calling you?
Paying attention to weather, making sure that they have gear to spend the night, even if it is an intended day hike, is the most critical part. Having a paper map with a compass, because batteries die. That is that's incredibly important. Ensuring that you have proper gear. You shouldn't be wearing jeans and cotton socks to go into the backcountry. It will not insulate you or keep you warm. When you cool off, you can get hypothermia no matter what time of year it is. Wet and cold at night, it's not a good combination. So having those options, definitely are a huge help. And in looking at the area that you're going into ahead of time, planning out your route, getting a good idea of what obstacles you might be encountering. Is this a trailless peak? Is it, if you're trying to do street, in between street and eye, navigate those herd paths, it's going to be a lot different than, taking the straight trail up Algonquin or, it depends on what they're doing, but definitely the research, the planning, and the most important thing is understanding that the mountain's not going anywhere. And if the weather is bad or it's not going to work out, it's going to be there when you come back.
Mm-hmm. Come back another day.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm thinking, don't hike alone. It's better to hike with others. There's strength in numbers. And don't panic. Try not to panic. If you run into bad weather, shelter in place. If, things start getting dark, stop, look, listen. Make sure that you bring more water than you need.
And flashlights.
Exactly.
I was just going to say really good advice, and also always encourage people to check out the Hike Smart tips on the DEC website, dec.ny.gov, for lots of information about how to properly prepare before you head out into the backcountry.
Yeah, being prepared is so critical for that. And, I think you two hear the most of it, so it's good to hear it from you, what the most common things are that people, find themselves in trouble. And, here are the things that you need to bring with you to make sure that you're able to survive that. That's important. So how long has Dispatch been around for? Like, when did this operation start?
It moved to Raybrook in the late 80s. But prior to that, Roland Patno was our radio engineer for DEC. And he was setting up the radio transmission setup, and that included getting ready for the 1980 Olympics in Lake Placid. He and his wife, Jackie, set up Saranac Lake Dispatch for DEC in their home in Saranac Lake up on the hill.
Oh, wow.
And they could reach most of the state from there. And I can't tell you how many rangers and ECOs told me at any point, they said, we never met Jackie, but if she stood behind us and opened her mouth at the grocery store, we would have known exactly who she was. And she always answered us, and we always felt safer when she was there. And I always took that with me, because that just goals.
Yep.
That level of service and that dedication, it's always given me something to look forward to.
So we do have a special guest with us here today, one of our newest listeners to the podcast as well, and she wanted to ask a question. So if I could have our special guest come over and ask her question. Talking to the microphone.
Do you guys ever get any prank calls?
I would say that we don't really get prank calls, but we get some funny calls.
Oh, funniest call ever, please.
Yeah. Yes.
Okay. Wow, there's a few, but I will give you my favorite one. At one point, we were statewide up here for ECOs and Rangers, and I was working the midnight shift. And a gentleman called me, and he said, I've got a problem. I have an owl in my car. And he said, I was driving down the road, and he goes, and I hit it, and it seemed stunned. He said, I put it in my car and turned my Garth Brooks back on. He goes, about the time Shameless came on, He goes, I happened to look over and the owl was up on the seat. I turned the light on to look at it, and the owl started fluttering around and scratching my seats. He says to me, what do I do now? I'm out of the car with the door shut, and the owl is tearing my seats apart. I said, sir, basically, you need to just open up the door and run like heck. So he's on the phone with me. And he's creeping up to his door, and he goes, I don't think I can do this. And I go, and I can hear the Garth Brooks playing in the background. And I said to him, sir, you're going to have to. So I said, the owl could get hurt, So he opens up the door, and he kind of yelled, ah, like that. And I said, are you all right? He goes, oh, he flew out. What do I do now? I go, have a good night, sir.
You get it all. These phone calls here. It's
Absolutely.
amazing. That's great. So I guess, obviously there are probably slower times of day and slower times of night. So what are some of your tips to get the phone to ring?
All you have to do is take food out. That's pretty much it.
Yeah,
Take it
anything
out
to
of the
take a bite.
microwave.
Yeah.
Anything. Yeah, there's certainly a tile if you're trying to run out of the office for 2 seconds. There's one tile that if you try to get past it, it's like,
Yeah.
phone, or the radio or whatever.
And also, if it always rings when you've got a mouthful of food, so you have to learn how to squirrel. How can I help you?
Yeah. We have that happen in Albany, right, Erica?
Yes, indeed.
Well, Alicia and David, thanks for hanging out with us here on this podcast, our first remote episode, and thanks for giving us a little behind-the-scenes look at our dispatch operation here. It is fun. Whenever I come up to Raybrook, you're one of the first stops I like to see. Just pop my head in and say hi, and also just really I'm curious because I just want to listen because I want calls to come in while you're there because I want to see you in action and I want to hear what's going on because you are the first to know when something goes bump in the night. This is where the calls come into, and it takes really, great people like you to make sure that we're supporting the people who are making calls and then also supporting our people out in the field. And it was interesting to hear some of your stories. And I'm sure there's a lot more in the annals of DEC history here that we didn't touch upon, but maybe we'll come back in the future and check in with you and see what else has been going on since this little episode here. But thanks for making time for us today.
Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much for coming.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Wow, Erica, what a great conversation with our dispatch experts.
They're pretty amazing.
They are. And that story about the owl, that was pretty awesome.
Hilarious.
I did, Dave did send me some additional stories that didn't make the cut for this episode.
Oh, do tell.
One involving a squirrel, which I do have to tell because it was pretty funny. So
Okay.
apparently some people were canoeing out in an Adirondack lake and they saw a squirrel in the middle of the lake swimming to the shore. And, they felt concerned for the squirrel. So they threw
Sure.
a rope from their boat so the squirrel could grab it. And apparently, as the story goes, the squirrel climbed up the rope, jumped in their boat, and proceeded to attack both of them, in which their boat capsized. They lost all their gear and needed to call the Rangers to be rescued.
And then went right to the hospital to get rabies vaccination.
I'm assuming so. I didn't get the outro for that, but yes, rest assured. But goes to show what our dispatch folks are up against all the times. And if you or a loved one are lost in the woods or need a ranger support, there is an 800 number that you can call. That's 1-833-NYS-RANGERS. That's 1-833-NYS-RANGERS. And that's the way you can get in touch with our dispatchers, and they can walk you through any problems that you're seeing or send the rangers out. But Erica, what else is going on around Team DEC these past couple weeks?
Well, we are moving into fall, so we announced the start of various small game seasons. These start September 1st. They run through March. This includes game birds like pheasants, fur bearers like fox and raccoons, as well as rabbits and some other critters. So check out the DEC website for all the dates, locations, and details.
Awesome. Yeah, hunting season is upon us here in the state. I bought my hunting license at the state fair, as we talked about in the last episode, but I'm myself looking forward to getting out there wearing my orange or pink to be safe in the woods this year, and we encourage all hikers and hunters alike to make sure you're being seen this time of year as more and more folks are out in the woods enjoying hunting around the state.
Yep.
What else is going on, Erica?
So we're going to be heading up to the beautiful city of Rochester.
Oh, yes, we are.
DEC is partnering with the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency that we've been hosting an environmental justice listening tour across the state. Most recently, we were down on Long Island, and on October 7th, we're going to be in Rochester.
Yeah, these are really important community conversations to really hear from the local folks about what's going on in their backyard and really helping us make sure that we are delivering the types of programs that they need to address the historical burdens on those communities and making sure that we're turning the corner and making these communities healthy for everyone who's living in them.
So the other big news?
Oh, yeah? What's that?
DEC now has 100,000 followers on Instagram.
That's amazing.
Which makes perfect sense to me because it is the home of beautiful photographs and hilarious content.
For sure.
So I encourage all New Yorkers and beyond to follow us on social media.
Our social media team is pretty amazing, and the content is really awesome.
At best in New York State. I'm just going to
100%.
go out and say it.
You can say it because it's the truth. And I can't wait till we have 100,000 followers on this podcast. So keep tuning in. Keep emailing us at
Dream big, Sean.
Always dream big. But keep emailing us at contact@dec.ny.gov. Let us know what else you want to hear about on the show. Send us your questions as well and things we can cover in the future. But Erica, most importantly, what can New Yorkers do?
Get outside.
DEC Does What? Is a production of DEC's Division of Communication, Education, and Engagement. Our theme music is an original composition by Mike Menza, wildlife technician with DEC's Division of Fish and Wildlife. Like what you heard on this episode? Please leave a review and share this episode with others. Want to learn more about DEC's wide-ranging efforts to protect New Yorkers and the environment? Visit dec.ny.gov or connect with us on social media. You can find us using @NYSDEC. For more information on DEC Does What, visit dec.ny.gov/podcast.